Since the COVID-19 breakout in early 2020, there has been another trend that has been rising. In general, the Jewish population have been subject to attack and hate for millennia, starting with the Babylonian exile and most recently with the Holocaust. But something now is emerging in the United States, especially in metropolitan New York. The Department of Justice relates that there has been a tremendous increase in the number of hate crimes occurring in the United States, with over half of them being targeted against the Jewish population. Hasidic communities in New York City have been the prevalent topic of conversation when it comes to anti-Semitic attacks. Multiple cases in Borough Park and Williamsburg, where various Hasidic dynasties flourish, have experienced countless anti-Semitic assaults in the subway and on the street, according to CBS News. Just recently, a Crown Heights man stabbed a member of the Chabad Lubavitch Hasidic community after yelling slurs at the man. Considerably, it is crucial to hear voices from those that are within these communities. Yet, due to the isolationist approach of many Hasidic communities in Borough Park and Williamsburg, we are limited to hearing from the Chabad Lubavitch community, which are more focused on outreach and are more willing to speak to interviewers. We will also be hearing from people in the South Brooklyn community, in which there has been a quiet war between the Russian Jewish community and people who oppose their presence in South Brooklyn. Here is what they have to say. We interviewed a few participants from South Brooklyn and from Crown Heights, and to get their input about the current situation and anti-Semitic attacks in both of these neighborhoods. Um, for an interview, we asked them four questions as a qualitative study and to determine what their experience was like in these said communities after 2020. What kind of harassment had they experienced? What kind of assaults had they experienced? Um, Regarding South Brooklyn, a lot of them have definitely said that they are verbally assaulted on a regular basis. Mr. Mark Levin, who is a business owner for a trucking company, has reported that multiple times when he was going to synagogue, there were these teenagers that would verbally assault him and call him names after asking whether or not he supported Palestine in the Middle East conflict. Um, Another incident was that his son was playing with a yarmulke on his head, playing soccer and a yarmulke on his head, and the teenagers wanted to play with him until they saw the kippah on his head, and after that they asked him what his opinion was on the Palestinian conflict. Mind you, he is 11 years old, and after that they started bullying him. When asked about whether or not there was an increase in anti-Semitic attacks since 2020 within the southern Brooklyn community of Sheepshead Bay and Brighton Beach, Mr. Levin responded definitely. He experienced it firsthand since 2020, and the media brings about cases of anti-Semitism. He wrote about the case of what happened in Bondi Beach, various other attacks that happened, especially in Williamsburg and Borough Park. And I quote, he says that there has been drastic increases by hundreds of percent. When asked about what kind of assaults have occurred or what kind of attacks have occurred to him or to other close relatives, he mentioned the various attacks that there have been on synagogues in these neighborhoods, naming specifically Congregation Israel of Kings Bay and Young Israel of Kings Bay. He mentioned that each of these synagogues were spray painted with swastikas and hateful messages, and including slurs. And this has been a target for a lot of burglary attempts because of its Jewish status in the community. Finally, when asked participants in Southern Brooklyn about what we could do to resolve this matter, they all said a very similar thing, which is that it is the politician's responsibility to use proper rhetoric when talking about different cultures. That is a quote from Mr. Levin's wife. He also said that one should teach in schools that the Jews have experienced anti-Semitic attacks for millennia, including the Holocaust. He states that The education system is failing the students with by not teaching them enough history about what happened to various cultures, the different massacres that happened, and in turn causing them to not be sensitive enough to these cultures. He cited a specific politician, Alexio Ocasio Cortez, which is a Democratic politician in New York, stating that she is quote unquote uneducated about the Middle East conflict, which causes Jews to be painted in a bad light. I also interviewed a few people from Crown Heights. A notable mention was Rabbi Menachem Mendel Jelen, who is a student at the Central Lubavitch Yeshiva on 770 Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn, New York, and Crown Heights. He describes that he received various comments from a lot of anti-Semites, a lot of slurs, from people that are just driving on the road. They see him on the corner, and he's as a pedestrian, he's crossing the street. They yell something at him, and they drive off. No provocation whatsoever happened beforehand. And usually this happens the closer you get to Nostrand Avenue and Utica Avenue, which is where really the Chabad Lubavitch community stops in their neighborhood growth. When asked about the progression of anti-Semitism post 2020, um, a lot of the Chabad Lubavitch community sadly do not follow the media, whether for better, whether for worse. No news is good news. However, he can't speak for himself as to whether or not they see some kind of increase in anti-Semitism. However, obviously, it is still known what's happening throughout the world through outside sources. Um, However, it was mentioned that there definitely is a lot more verbal assaults after 2020. And Rabbi Jelen has been in Crown Heights currently, and he's been also been in Sheepshead Bay. He could speak for Sheepshead Bay as well, and he does say that in southern Brooklyn and Sheepshead Bay there have been definitely more verbal attacks. Um, Speaking on behalf of others, when asked about if some kind of Jewish targeted assault happened to another person of his, a colleague, a relative, maybe to himself possibly, he spoke of a story of one of his colleagues, one of his friends that almost got robbed going at night, and he said that a lot of his friends have realized, and a lot of people on the outside have realized, that a lot of these robbers and criminals target Jews more to commit their crimes, which in and of itself is also anti-Semitic. To say that there are assaults that happen to him personally or to any kind of friends, any kind of relatives, he says no assaults to his knowledge. And when asked for a resolution, and this is also speaking to him as well as speaking to various other of his colleagues, especially one that works in the Shomer, which is the private Jewish service for policing and protection, which they do report more assaults occurring in Crown Heights, especially after 2020. Surprisingly enough, and this also correlates with what Mr. Levin said in the previous segment, to teach children in school, to educate them in moral values and educate them to respect tradition and cultures of various sorts, to have more sensitivity and have more open mindedness to different cultures and not to hate at first glance. Now that we have these different perspectives from people in South Brooklyn and people in Crown Heights, um, their call to action is to go straight to the politicians, change rhetoric, and first and foremost, they want to start at the level of school children to teach them how to be sensitive and teach them moral values on how to respect other cultures and not to immediately hate them. Obviously, the root of all of this can also be found in the homes of children with their parents instilling these ideologies and these biases that they could seem to be normal. Um, but aside from all of this, my call to action to you is, if you see something, say something. You always hear on the subways and you always hear on the buses that you are the eyes and ears of New York. Take that to a literal sense. Don't be a bystander. If you see something, do something about it. There's no reason why somebody should be attacked or why a building should be attacked because of the God they believe in. There's absolutely no reason for people to be persecuted because they are part of an ethno religion, and that they are seen as these monsters, were persecuted for millennia, for blood libels, for clashing with other religions, for whatever reason it may be. We are in the 21st century, and we have a lot of social norm that has not existed in the past century that exists now, and we have to be more accepting about that. And my call to you is to be more accepting and don't just stand there and look. Thank you so much.